Cole Brennan rode easy in the saddle, his horse's breath misting in the November cold. Thanksgiving morning had broken gray and still, the kind of quiet that made a man think about what waited at home. His saddlebags bulged with supplies from town coffee, flour, a jar of preserves his housekeeper favored. The road curved past unclaimed land where brush grew thick and the grass turned brown. He spotted the boy before the boy saw him, a small figure crouched by the roadside, struggling with a bundle of kindling and something else. As Cole drew closer, he saw it was a turkey scrawny thing, barely worth the plucking. The boy couldn't have been more than 12. Thin as a fence rail and clothes patched 3 times over. The boy looked up. His face was clean but gaunt, eyes too old for his years. "Mister," the boy called, standing, "it's Thanksgiving. We can share my turkey, if you'd like." Cole reined in. He'd been riding this territory for 30 years and thought he'd seen everything. But this stopped him cold. The boy held that pitiful bird like it was treasure, offering to share what couldn't feed 2 grown men, let alone leave leftovers. "That's a kind offer," Cole said carefully. "You got folks nearby?" "Just me, sir. Daniel Archer." The boy shifted the turkey to one arm, extended his hand like a grown man conducting business. Cole leaned down and shook it. The boy's grip was firm despite the cold reddening his knuckles. "I got a fire going," Daniel said. "Turkey's already dressed. Won't take long to roast." Cole studied the boy's face. No pleading there, no shame, just simple, honest invitation. Something in the boy's steady gaze pulled at him, reminded him of someone, though he couldn't say who. "I accept," Cole heard himself say. Daniel's face brightened. "This way, sir. Ain't far." Cole dismounted and led his horse, following the boy off the main road. They walked in silence, their boots crunching frozen grass. The land here lay fallow. Nobody's and everybody's. A hawk circled overhead, hunting. They topped a small rise, and Cole saw it a lean-to shelter. 3 walls of scrap lumber and a canvas roof. A fire pit sat out front, smoke rising thin and gray. This was the boy's home. This patch of frozen ground and salvaged wood. Daniel set the turkey down and began feeding kindling to the fire, his movements practiced and efficient. Cole tied his horse to a scrub oak and stood there, the weight of understanding settling on him like snow. The boy had nothing, and he'd offered to share everything. "Make yourself comfortable, sir," Daniel said, not looking up from the fire. "She'll cook up fine. You'll see." Cole lowered himself onto a log that served as a bench. His own Thanksgiving table waited at home roasted goose, cornbread still warm from the oven, his housekeeper's pumpkin preserves, enough food for 5 men, set for 1. He watched the boy work the fire, watched him prepare the turkey with the care of someone who understood what it meant to waste nothing, and Cole felt something shift in his chest, like a door opening in a house that had been closed too long. Daniel rigged the turkey on a spit made from green willow branches. He turned it slow and steady, the skin beginning to brown. The smell made Cole's stomach growl despite the breakfast he'd eaten in town. "How long you been out here?" Cole asked. 2 winters. Near enough." Daniel didn't take his eyes off the bird. "My folks had a place 3 miles east. Fever took them both in '82. Cole did the math. The boy couldn't have been more than 10 when he was orphaned. 2 years alone on this hard land. "You got kin elsewhere?" "No, sir, just me now." The turkey dripped fat into the fire, flaring and hissing. Daniel adjusted the spit, his hand steady despite the heat. Cole noticed how the boy's sleeves barely reached his wrists. He'd outgrown his coat but had nothing to replace it with. "You eat regular?" Cole asked. "Often enough?" Daniel smiled, and it was genuine. "I trap rabbits mostly, do odd jobs in town when there's work. Today was lucky, found this turkey yesterday. Already weak. Practically walked into my hands. And your first thought was to share it with a stranger." Daniel shrugged. "Thanksgiving ain't meant for eating alone. That's what my mama always said." Cole had to look away. The boy spoke of his dead mother with no bitterness, just simple fact. Meanwhile, Cole had spent the last 10 Thanksgivings alone by choice, telling himself he preferred the quiet. The turkey finished cooking as the sun climbed toward noon. Daniel carved it with a knife he kept sharp as a razor, his cuts precise and economical. He gave Cole the breast and a drumstick, keeping the wings and back for himself. Every scrap went onto tin plates that had seen better days. They ate without talking much. Cole watched the boy chew slowly, making each bite last, savoring it like fine restaurant fare. When they finished the meat, Daniel wrapped the bones carefully in a scrap of cloth. "For broth tomorrow," he explained. "Boil these with some wild onion. You got a meal?" Cole's portion had been generous, more than half the bird. His plate sat clean, but his conscience felt heavy. At home, his housekeeper would have tossed those bones to the dogs. "That was fine eating," Cole said. "I'm obliged." "Pleasure's mine, sir. It's good to have company." The boy smiled again, and Cole saw no resentment in it. No envy for Cole's warm coat or the horse that cost more than Daniel had probably seen in his life. Just contentment at a shared meal. They sat as the fire burned low, watching the gray sky. A cold wind picked up, rattling the canvas roof. Daniel pulled his thin coat tighter but didn't complain. "You got enough wood for tonight?" Cole asked. "Yes, sir. I keep a good pile." "Learned that the hard way my first winter?" Cole stood, brushing off his pants. His horse stamped, ready to move. He should go. His own dinner waited. But leaving felt wrong, like walking out of church before the benediction. "I appreciate the hospitality. Daniel, you're welcome any time. Mr. The boy paused. "I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name." "Cole Brennan. I ranch about 5 miles west of here." Recognition flickered in the boy's eyes. "I heard of you. Sir, folks say you run a good operation." "I do all right." Cole untied his horse, then turned back. "You take care of yourself, son." "I will, sir." "Happy Thanksgiving." Cole rode away slowly, looking back once to see Daniel banking the fire, preparing for the cold night ahead. The image stayed with him, that small figure against the vast, indifferent prairie, alone but not broken. By the time Cole reached home, the sun was setting. His housekeeper had kept everything warm. The table looked like a painting. All that abundance for one man. He sat down, said grace like his mother taught him, and took a bite of goose. It tasted like ash in his mouth. He pushed back from the table and went to his study. Sleep wouldn't come easy tonight, he knew that much already. Cole sat at his desk past midnight, the lamp burning low. He'd pulled out an old wooden box from the bottom drawer, the one he hadn't opened in years. Inside lay letters, a few photographs, and a land deed yellow with age. He unfolded the deed carefully. His own name was written there in Sam Holt's careful script, dated 1855. 40 acres on the South Range. Sold for $200, half what it was worth. Paid over 3 years with no interest. Cole had been 23 then, drifting and broke. Too proud to beg and too stubborn to quit. Sam Holt found him sleeping in his barn, gave him work instead of running him off. Taught him cattle, taught him land management, taught him what it meant to build something lasting. When Sam died, his last letter had been clear. Wealth ain't for hoarding. Son, it's for passing forward. Cole had built his ranch on that foundation, prospered, grew comfortable, and somewhere along the way, he'd forgotten what it felt like to have nothing but another man's faith. Until today. Until a boy with one scrawny turkey reminded him. Cole rose before dawn. His mind made up. He dressed quickly, went to his safe, and pulled out a deed to 40 acres on his southern border. Good land, flat and well-grassed, suitable for grazing or cultivation. He'd held onto it for years, meaning to expand, never quite getting around to it. He loaded his wagon with lumber, good pine boards, not scraps, tools, nails. A stove he'd bought for the bunkhouse but never installed. He hitched his strongest draft horse and headed east as the sun broke the horizon. Daniel's fire was already going when Cole arrived. The boy stood quickly, surprise clear on his face. "Mr. Brennan, sir? Didn't expect to see you again so soon." Cole climbed down from the wagon. "Got a proposition for you, if you're willing to hear it." "Yes, sir." Daniel's voice was cautious but curious. Cole pulled the deed from his coat pocket, unfolded it, and held it out. 40 acres, southern edge of my property, good grazing land. It's yours, free and clear, if you want it. Daniel stared at the paper like it might bite him. "Sir, I don't understand. I'm giving you land, son, and I'm offering to teach you a trade, turkey farming. There's growing demand from the towns and railroad camps. You got the heart for it yesterday, proved that. But you need knowledge, and that has to be earned through work." The boy's hands trembled as he took the deed. He read it slowly, his lips moving over the words. When he looked up, his eyes were wet, but his voice was steady. "Why would you do this for me?" "Because 30 years ago, a man named Sam Holt did it for me." Cole met the boy's gaze. "I was broke and desperate, sleeping in his barn. He gave me a chance to prove myself. I'm paying that forward. I don't know how to farm turkeys. I'll teach you, but you work hard, you listen, and you keep honest accounts. This ain't charity, it's opportunity. What you make of it is up to you." Daniel wiped his eyes with his sleeve. "I won't let you down, sir, I swear it." "I know you won't." Cole gestured to the wagon. "First thing we do is build you a proper cabin. Can't run a turkey operation living under canvas." "A cabin." Daniel's voice cracked. "And a coop. We got winter coming. But if we work steady, we'll have you under a real roof by Christmas. Come spring, we'll get you started with breeding stock." Daniel looked at the deed again, then at Cole, then at the loaded wagon. His face showed disbelief warring with hope. "I got nothing to give you in return," he said quietly. "You already gave it, yesterday. When you shared your last meal with a stranger." Cole put his hand on the boy's shoulder. "That kind of generosity is rare. Daniel, it deserves better than a lean-to and cold nights." The boy nodded, unable to speak. He folded the deed carefully and tucked it into his shirt, over his heart. "Where do we start?" he asked. Cole smiled. "We start with measuring. Come on, I'll show you how to frame a wall." They worked through the morning, Cole teaching and Daniel absorbing every word like parched ground soaking rain. The foundation of something new was being laid, and both of them felt it, the weight of it, the rightness of it, by noon. They'd marked out the cabin's footprint, small but solid, room enough for a man to live with dignity. Daniel stood at the corner post they'd driven, looking at the outline of what would be his home. "Thank you, Mr. Brennan. I don't have better words than that. Those are the right words, son. Now let's get to work." Winter came hard and early that year. By mid-December, snow lay 6 inches deep across the territory. Cole and Daniel worked through it, their breath frosting in the cold air as they raised walls and fitted rafters. Cole's ranch hands watched the project with varying degrees of interest. Some thought it foolish putting time and money into a charity case who'd likely give up come spring. Others saw something different, though they kept their opinions quiet. Tom Hastings, Cole's foreman, was in the skeptical camp. He rode out one morning to find Cole and Daniel shingling the roof. "Boss, you got a buyer interested in those yearling steers?" Tom called up. "Wants to meet tomorrow." "Set it up for afternoon," Cole said, not pausing in his work. "I'll be done here by noon." Tom shifted in his saddle. "You putting a lot of time into this." "I am. Boy, gonna make it worth your while." Cole looked down at his foreman. "That's not why I'm doing it." "Tom, just saying. Charity's one thing, but you're in deep now lumber, tools, time away from your own operation." Daniel had gone still, his hammer frozen mid-swing. Cole saw the boy's jaw tighten. Tom, you remember when you started working for me 10 years back? I do. You were green as spring grass, didn't know a bull from a milk cow. But I saw something in you worth developing. Cole drove another nail home. I'm seeing the same thing now. That satisfy your curiosity. Tom's face reddened slightly. Meant no offense. Boss. None taken. We'll talk tomorrow about those steers. The foreman rode off, and Daniel exhaled slowly. Don't mind him, Cole said. People always got opinions about what others do with their own resources. He thinks I'll fail. Probably. That just means you got to prove him wrong. They finished the roof by dusk. Cole stepped back to admire their work a cabin, modest but well built, with a stone chimney that would keep the place warm. It wasn't fancy, but it was solid. It would last. Tomorrow we start on the coop. Cole said, turkey housing needs to be right good ventilation but no drafts. Roosting bars at the proper height. Nesting boxes the hens will actually use. Daniel nodded, studying the cabin like he was memorizing every board. How do you know all this? I thought you ran cattle. I do. But I studied every kind of farming I could when I was learning. Never know when knowledge will come in handy. Cole clapped the boy on the shoulder. Come on, let's get that stove installed before you freeze tonight. They worked by lamplight, fitting the stovepipe through the roof and sealing it properly. When Cole struck a match and lit the kindling, the fire caught quickly. Heat began to fill the small space. Daniel stood in the center of his new home, turning slowly. The walls were bare, the floor rough-hewn. But it was his. 4 walls. A roof. A door that latched. A stove that would keep him warm all winter. First night in your own house, Cole said. How's it feel? Like I'm dreaming and scared to wake up. You're awake. Son, this is real. Cole handed him a bedroll he'd brought from his ranch. You earned this. Every nail you drove. Every board you measured, that's what built these walls. Not my money. Your work. Daniel took the bedroll, his throat working. I'll pay you back. Every cent. I know you will. But not because you owe me, because that's the kind of man you're becoming. Cole left as full dark settled. Riding home, he looked back once to see lamplight glowing in the cabin's window. One small light in the vast darkness, but it was enough. The next morning, they started on the turkey coop. Cole brought the breeding stock 2 weeks later, 1 tom and 6 hens, good birds with strong bloodlines. Daniel treated them like royalty, checking on them hourly, keeping their water fresh, their feed measured precisely. He kept a ledger in careful script, noting every dollar Cole advanced. Feed costs, lumber, nails, the birds themselves, everything recorded, nothing forgotten. You don't have to track it that close. Cole said once. Yes, sir, I do. This is a loan, not a gift. I need to know exactly what I owe. Cole recognized pride when he saw it. The healthy kind, the kind that made a man stand straight. So he let the boy keep his ledger and said nothing more about it. By late February, the hens were laying. Daniel collected eggs like they were gold, storing them carefully in the cabin's coolest corner. When the first poults hatched in March, he barely slept, watching over them through the vulnerable first weeks. Cole visited often, teaching as they worked. How to recognize illness, when to separate aggressive birds, the right balance of feed for growth versus cost. Daniel absorbed it all, asking smart questions, making connections Cole hadn't expected. One evening, Tom Hastings stopped by the cabin to deliver a message for Cole. He found Daniel inside, cooking supper on his stove beans and cornbread. Simple but sufficient. Boss around? Tom asked. He left about an hour ago. Sir. Is it urgent? Nah, I'll catch him at home. Tom lingered in the doorway. Place looks good. You built this, Mr. Brennan and me together, sir. Tom nodded slowly. His eyes took in the neat cabin, the organized supplies, the ledger open on the table. How many birds you got now? 16 total, 6 hens, 1 tom, and 9 poults that hatched last month. You know what you're doing with them? Learning more every day, sir? Tom was quiet for a moment. Then, keep at it. Boy, maybe I was wrong about you. It wasn't quite an apology, but Daniel smiled anyway. Thank you, sir. After Tom left, Daniel stood at his doorway, watching the last light fade. His turkeys were settling in their coop, making soft, burbling sounds. His cabin was warm. His stomach was full. He allowed himself a moment of cautious hope. Maybe he could do this. Maybe he could make something of himself after all. Spring arrived fully by late April, bringing green grass and longer days. Daniel's flock had grown to 18 birds, all healthy, all thriving. He'd learned their individual personalities, could tell them apart at a glance. Cole visited less frequently now, trusting Daniel to manage the day-to-day work. But when he did come, they fell into an easy rhythm that felt like family. They'd share a meal, discuss the flock's progress, plan for the future. You'll want to start selling this fall, Cole said one evening, sitting at Daniel's table. Railroad camps always need meat, and towns get hungry for turkey come Thanksgiving. How many should I keep for breeding? The best 10 or 12. Sell the rest. Use that money to buy more stock next spring. Good bloodlines from different sources to avoid inbreeding. Daniel made notes in his ledger, his writing more confident now. Mr. Brennan, can I ask you something? Always. Why turkeys? Why not cattle or sheep? Cole smiled. Lower startup cost, faster return on investment. A good breeding hen can produce 20 poults a year. Can't do that with cattle. Plus, turkeys are easier for one man to manage alone. You thought this through before you offered. I did. This wasn't a whim. Daniel, I believed you could succeed at this. Believed. Past tense. Now I know you can. Daniel looked down at his ledger, but Cole saw the flush of pride on the boy's face. The boy who was becoming a young man, 14 now, taller, filling out from regular meals and hard work. That night, after Cole left, Daniel couldn't sleep. He lay in his bunk, listening to the familiar sounds of his property wind in the grass. Turkeys settling, the creak of the cabin as it cooled, his property, his life, his future. Fear crept in with the darkness. What if something went wrong? What if the birds got sick? What if he failed and proved all the skeptics right? He rose and went to the coop. Checking on the flock by lamplight, they were fine, sleeping peacefully. But he couldn't shake the anxiety. The next week brought a cold snap. Unusual for May, frost threatened one night, and Daniel remembered what Cole had taught him about protecting young birds from sudden temperature drops. He moved the youngest poults into the cabin, setting up a makeshift pen near the stove. He stayed up all night, keeping the fire going, checking the birds every hour. By dawn he was exhausted, but every poult had survived. Cole arrived mid-morning to find Daniel asleep sitting up, surrounded by young turkeys exploring the cabin floor. Daniel. Cole shook the boy's shoulder gently. Daniel jerked awake, momentarily disoriented. Then he saw the birds and relaxed. They're all right. I kept them warm. I can see that. Cole surveyed the chaos turkey droppings on the floor. Scattered feed. Daniel's exhausted face. You did good, son. I was scared they'd die, that I'd lose everything because of one cold night. But they didn't die because you stayed vigilant. Cole helped him stand. That's what separates success from failure: paying attention and acting when it matters. They moved the poults back to the coop as the day warmed. Cole stayed to help clean the cabin, neither of them talking much. The companionable silence said enough. When they finished, Cole put his hand on Daniel's shoulder. Your folks would be proud of you. I want you to know that Daniel's voice came out rough. I hope so, sir. I know so. You're not just surviving anymore. You're building something that matters. That night, Daniel wrote in his ledger not accounts, but thoughts. He'd started doing that sometimes, recording moments that felt important. He wrote about the frost, about saving the pulse, about Cole's words. At the bottom he added, maybe I'm not meant to fail. Maybe I'm meant for this. He slept soundly that night, the kind of sleep that comes from honest exhaustion and earned peace. Outside, his turkeys settled in their coop, secure and growing. The future still held uncertainty, but it also held possibility. And for the first time since his parents died, Daniel believed the possibility might be stronger than the fear. By August, Daniel's flock numbered 60 birds. The poults from spring had matured into strong young turkeys, and his original hens had hatched a second round. The coop he'd built with Cole was full, and he'd had to construct additional roosting space. Cole had arranged a contract with a railroad supply depot 20 miles east. They needed steady meat supply for the work camps, 24 turkeys a month through fall and winter. The price was fair, better than local market rates. Daniel calculated the numbers every night. If the contract held, he'd have enough to repay Cole completely and still have capital to expand next spring. He could hire help, maybe even build a proper barn. Everything depended on that contract. The letter came on a Tuesday in late September. Tom Hastings delivered it, his face unreadable. This came for you, Tom said, handing over the envelope. From the railroad depot. Daniel's hands shook as he opened it. He read once, then again. The words not changing no matter how many times his eyes passed over them. The depot was canceling their contract. The railroad had changed routes. The work camps were shutting down. They regretted any inconvenience. Bad news, Tom asked, though his tone suggested he already knew. They canceled. Daniel's voice came out flat. No warning, just canceled. That's rough. Son, I'm sorry. After Tom left, Daniel sat at his table, staring at 60 turkeys through his window. They'd be ready for market in 6 weeks. He had no buyer. Feed costs were mounting. The money he'd saved would last maybe 2 months at current burn rate. He could sell them locally for slaughter prices maybe 30 cents a bird instead of the $1.50 the railroad had promised. That would cover his immediate debts but destroy any hope of expanding. The math was brutal. He laid it out in his ledger with a steady hand that belied the panic in his chest. Without the railroad contract, he was finished. Word spread through the territory the way news always did. Daniel heard the whispers when he went to town for supplies, saw the pitying looks, the knowing nods. The charity case had failed, just like they'd predicted. He held his head high and said nothing. But inside, something was crumbling. Cole came by 3 days after the letter arrived. He found Daniel in the coop, obsessively checking birds that didn't need checking. Tom told me about the contract. Cole said, "Yes, sir." Daniel didn't turn around. "What's your plan? Sell at slaughter price, pay back what I can, move on." The words tasted like ashes. That's giving up. That's facing facts. Daniel finally looked at him. I can't feed 60 birds through winter with no buyer. I can't keep borrowing money I can't pay back. I tried, Mr. Brennan. I really tried, but maybe this isn't meant for me. Cole was quiet for a long moment. Come up to the cabin. We need to talk. They sat at Daniel's table, the ledger open between them. Cole studied the numbers, his face thoughtful. You got good birds here, Cole said. Healthy stock, good size, well fed. That's worth something. Not if nobody's buying. One buyer said no. That doesn't mean there aren't others. Cole tapped the ledger. But you can't put all your faith in one contract. That's what got you in this spot. I didn't know any better. Now you do. So we adapt. Cole pulled out a piece of paper, started making notes. Sell 30 birds local shops, restaurants, families wanting meat for winter. Won't get top price, but it's something. Keep your best 10 for breeding. That still leaves 20 birds. 20 birds I can't sell and can't afford to feed. Tom's cousin runs supply for Fort Benson. They buy meat regular. I'll send a telegram. See if he's interested. Daniel wanted to hope but couldn't afford to. And if he's not, then we find someone else. There's always someone who needs to eat. Cole met his eyes. But you got to stop thinking like a victim and start thinking like a businessman. This is a setback, not a death sentence. Feels like dying. I know it does. I've been there. Cole's voice softened. First year I had my own place. Drought killed half my herd. I thought I was finished. Sam Holt told me the same thing I'm telling you. You're only finished if you quit. Daniel looked at the ledger, at all those careful numbers. 2 years of work. 2 years of hope. I don't want to quit, he said quietly. But I don't know if I'm strong enough to keep going. You're strong enough. You survived 2 years alone after your folks died. You built this place from nothing. That kind of strength doesn't disappear just because business gets hard. Cole stood, putting his hat on. I'll telegraph Fort Benson today. You start talking to buyers in town. We'll figure this out. After Cole left, Daniel sat alone as dusk settled. His turkeys were settling in for the night, making their soft sounds. They depended on him. They didn't know about canceled contracts or mounting debts. They just knew he kept them safe and fed. He couldn't let them down. And maybe, just maybe, he couldn't let himself down either. He opened his ledger to a fresh page and started making a new plan. It wasn't the plan he'd wanted, but it was a plan that might work. And right now, that had to be enough. Daniel spent the next week in town, talking to every shopkeeper and restaurant owner who'd listen. Most were sympathetic but non-committal. A few offered insultingly low prices. One butcher laughed in his face. He came home each evening exhausted and discouraged, the weight of failure pressing down harder with each rejection. On Friday, he started packing his belongings. Not much to pack 2 years and his life still fit in one canvas bag. He'd sell the flock at whatever price he could get, pay Cole as much as possible, and move on. Maybe find work on the railroad himself. Start over somewhere nobody knew about his failed dream. Cole found him Saturday morning, clothes folded on the bed, the cabin half empty. What's this? Cole asked, though his tone suggested he knew exactly what it was. I can't do it. Mr. Brennan, I tried. I talked to everyone in 3 towns. Nobody wants to pay a fair price, and I can't afford to wait. Daniel's voice was steady but defeated. I won't drag you down with me. I'll sell the birds, pay what I can, and get out of your way. Cole sat down heavily at the table. For a long time, he said nothing. Daniel kept packing, the silence stretching between them. You think I gave you this land because I expected you to succeed right off, Cole finally said. Daniel paused. Sir, I failed 3 times before my first profit. Daniel. 3 times. Sam Holt lost money on me for 2 years straight, but he didn't give up. And he didn't let me give up either. This is different. How you hit a setback. That's business. That's life. Cole's voice grew firmer. You got 60 healthy birds, good land, and skills most men don't learn in a lifetime. You think I'm going to let you throw that away because one contract fell through? It's not your choice. You're right, it's yours. But before you make it, hear me out. Daniel stopped packing and turned around. Cole spread his hands on the table. We diversify. Sell some local even at lower prices. Something's better than nothing. Keep your best breeders. I'll front money for winter feed, and you add it to what you already owe me. Come spring, we try again with a broader customer base. You'd loan me more money after I failed war. You didn't fail. You got unlucky. There's a difference. I can't keep taking from you. Then don't think of it as taking. Think of it as investing in something I believe in. Cole's eyes were steady. I believe in you. Daniel. The question is whether you believe in yourself. Before Daniel could answer, they heard a horse outside. Tom Hastings dismounted, his weathered face unusually animated. Boss, got a minute? Tom called. They stepped outside. Tom nodded to Daniel. You too. Boy, this concerns you. What is it? Cole asked. My cousin at Fort Benson. I mentioned Daniel's turkey operation when I was writing him about something else. Tom shifted his weight. He's interested. Says the fort's been buying from a supplier who can't keep up with demand. He wants to know if Daniel can provide 20 birds a month through winter, 30 a month come spring. Daniel's heart stopped. 20 birds a month. That's what he said. Premium price too, Fort pays well for quality. I told him your birds are the best in the territory. Tom's gruff expression softened slightly. I've been watching you work. Boy, you earned that endorsement. Daniel couldn't speak. Cole put a hand on his shoulder. Told you we'd find a buyer, Cole said quietly. Daniel's voice broke. I thought you didn't believe in me. Mr. Hastings, I didn't. But I was wrong. Tom extended his hand. You proved me wrong. That takes some doing. Daniel shook the offered hand, his grip firm despite the emotion threatening to overwhelm him. Thank you, sir. I won't let you down. See that you don't. My reputation's attached to this now. But Tom was almost smiling when he said it. After Tom left, Daniel and Cole stood in the yard, the autumn sun warming their faces. Still planning to quit? Cole asked. Daniel looked at his cabin, his coop, his birds. No, sir. I believe I'll stay. Good, because you got work to do. Cole clapped him on the back. Fort contract, local sales, breeding stock to manage. You're going to need help come spring. I'll hire someone when I can afford it. There's a widow in town, Mrs. Patterson. Her son's 15. Good worker. Needs employment. Think about it. Daniel nodded slowly. A few hours ago, he'd been packing to leave. Now he was planning to hire help. Life could turn on a moment. He was learning that learning it bone deep. He went inside and unpacked his bag, putting everything back where it belonged. This was his home. This was his life. And for the first time since the railroad letter arrived, he let himself believe it might actually work out. 1 year later, Thanksgiving morning broke clear and cold. Daniel stood in his yard watching the sun rise over land he owned, buildings he'd constructed, turkeys he'd raised, 300 birds now, across 4 coops and expanded pasture. He'd repaid Cole 6 months ago. Every dollar. Every cent of interest Cole had tried to refuse. The ledger showed a profit not huge, but steady and growing. The Fort contract had held. Local sales had expanded. 2 restaurants in the territorial capital now ordered from him monthly. Mrs. Patterson's son James had proven himself invaluable. The boy worked hard and learned fast, much like Daniel had 2 years before. Daniel paid him fair wages and was teaching him the trade. Inside the cabin, enlarged now with a proper kitchen and sitting room, Daniel prepared for guests. A real Thanksgiving dinner, the kind his mother used to make. Turkey, of course, roasted to golden perfection. Cornbread, wild rice, preserved vegetables from the garden he'd planted. Pumpkin pie made from Mrs. Patterson's recipe. Cole arrived first, bringing his housekeeper and 2 ranch hands. Tom Hastings came with his wife, Mrs. Patterson and James. The butcher from town who'd once laughed at Daniel's prices but now ordered regularly. A few neighbors Daniel had helped during the year, teaching them what Cole had taught him. The small cabin filled with people, warmth, and the smell of good food. Daniel stood at the head of his table, in his home, surrounded by community he'd earned through honest work and fair dealing. Before we eat, Daniel said, his voice steady despite emotion rising in his chest. I want to say something. The room quieted. A year ago I had 1 scrawny turkey and nothing else. But I had something I didn't recognize then. I had people willing to believe in me. Mr. Brennan gave me land and knowledge, but more than that, he gave me a chance to prove I was worth it. Cole's eyes were suspiciously bright. Mr. Hastings, you gave me the connection that saved my business. James, you gave me the help I needed to grow. All of you. Daniel's voice caught. All of you gave me something I'd lost when my folks died. You gave me family. He raised his glass of cider. Here's to chances, and to passing them forward. Here, here. Voices chorused, glasses clinked. Laughter and conversation filled the room. They ate well, the table groaning with abundance. Daniel watched his guests enjoy the food he'd provided, the warmth he'd created. This was what success felt like, not just money in the ledger, but people gathered in gratitude and fellowship. After the meal, as others helped clean up, Cole and Daniel stepped outside. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. They walked toward the coops, where turkeys settled for the night. Quite a year, Cole said. Yes, sir. Quite a year. You planning to expand more? Thinking about it. Maybe add geese next spring. Maybe chickens for eggs. Daniel smiled. Maybe take on another young person who needs teaching. Cole nodded approvingly. There's a new boy in town, orphaned a few months back, working odd jobs, sleeping rough, like you were. Thought you should know. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the last light fade. Daniel's land stretched around them 40 acres, transformed from empty grass to productive purpose. You exceeded every expectation I had, Cole said quietly. You're not just surviving, you're thriving. Because you saw something in me worth saving. I saw something in you worth investing in. There's a difference. Cole's voice was warm. You did the work. Daniel, you earned every bit of this. Inside, someone was playing a harmonica. Voices rose in an old hymn, slightly off-key but heartfelt. The sound drifted across the prairie, carrying hope into the gathering darkness. Daniel thought about that boy in town, alone and scared. He thought about his own journey from that lean-to to this moment. He thought about chances given and chances earned. I'll talk to that boy, he said. Maybe he'd like Thanksgiving dinner tomorrow. Plenty of leftovers. Cole smiled. I expect there are. They walked back to the cabin together, two men bound by gratitude and respect, by the understanding that wealth isn't just what you keep, but what you give away. The door opened, spilling light and warmth into the night. Daniel stepped inside to rejoin his guests, his family, his life. He was home. Spring came early the following year. Daniel stood on the hill above his property, watching James and two new hired hands working the coops below. The operation had grown beyond anything he'd imagined that first Thanksgiving. Cole joined him, moving slower these days but still sharp-eyed and thoughtful. 4 coops, 2 barns, and you're planning a 5th building, Cole observed. Biggest turkey operation in the territory? Never thought I'd hear those words applied to me. You earned them. Cole gestured to the young man working near the southern fence. That the boy from town, Henry, yes sir, good worker, reminds me of myself a few years back, eager to learn, scared to fail. You teaching him everything you taught me, including the part about passing it forward. They stood quietly, watching the operation run smoothly. Daniel had learned to delegate, to trust others, to build something larger than himself. The business wasn't just about birds anymore, it was about creating opportunity. The way Cole had created opportunity for him. Walk with me, Cole said. They descended the hill, following a familiar path. They stopped at a patch of ground where grass grew slightly different from the surrounding prairie. This was where Daniel's lean-to had stood 3 years ago. Nothing left, Daniel said softly. Like it never existed. But it did exist. And you survived it. Cole's voice was gentle. I remember being so cold that winter, so hungry. I thought I'd die out here and nobody'd notice. I noticed. Son, you did. You saw me when I couldn't even see myself. Daniel looked at his mentor. Why, what made you stop that day? Cole considered the question. You offered your last meal to a stranger. That kind of generosity, that kind of heart, it's rare. I couldn't let it go to waste. I was just following what my mama taught me. Your mama raised you right. She'd be proud of who you've become. They walked the property. Cole's property once, but Daniel's now through that original gift of 40 acres. Fences stretched across land that Daniel had purchased as profits grew. Buildings stood where emptiness had been. Hundreds of turkeys roamed in the afternoon sun. I've been thinking, Daniel said, about expanding into geese like we discussed, but also about something else. What's that teaching? Maybe offering my land as a learning place for young people who want to farm but don't have resources. Give them work, teach them the trade, help them get started on their own. Cole stopped walking. His eyes were bright, like a school, more like an apprenticeship. The way you apprenticed me, but formal, structured. That's a fine idea. Daniel, a fine idea indeed. Would you help me set it up, your experience? My operation, we could teach them right. Cole put his hand on Daniel's shoulder. I'd be honored. They stood together, looking out over land transformed by work and faith and stubborn hope. The sun was setting, painting everything gold. You know what the best part is? Daniel said. What's that?